Good morning on this Friday morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take for Market Rebellion, and the powerful day that we had yesterday, just scorching and ripping to the upside. Really impressive once again by the Dow, leading the way, and an absolutely amazing run to the upside. And in the last 10 minutes, why not add another 50 points to a 270-point day to the upside? That was impressive. The NASDAQ also impressive. It was ripping and sliding and moving and shifting. And as we got through the rest of the day, even in the final moments, we closed on the highs there as well, up 114 points on the NASDAQ. So a really impressive day to the upside. Also, crude. You look at crude oil, it actually dipped into the 67 category, and then whoop, we just started to rip to the upside, got back up towards 69. As a matter of fact, that energy space yesterday really was a huge contributor to that move to the upside. It was up nearly 1.5% yesterday for energy as oil, as crude moved back up and above that 69 level. We had volatility that was in an extremely tight range. And the reason for that was when those markets made their moves, they made the moves very early in the day. And then we just kind of continually, gradually got a little bit higher, but it was a very gradual move until the final 10, 15 minutes. But that gradual move. So volatility did what? It was in a very constricted, very tight range, closed around 1716 yesterday. Now, let's remember, it was not too many days ago where we did have that little pop, that brief pop over 20. Here we are back right where we seem to find ourselves day in and day out, closer towards 17. That range yesterday, 1710 to 1750. That's a very, very tight range. And today's getting even a little bit more interesting when it comes to the volatility. You look over at the 10-year. The 10-year finally has been chopping wood and moving to the upside, moving towards that 1.2 area yesterday. And with that, we had the financials ripping to the upside as well, up about $1.25%. That was a really nice move from those financials. Bell to bell, it was energy, it was financials. That was what was really leading the markets to the upside. Oh, and by the way, the SMH, yeah, another all-time high yesterday, hitting on those numbers. Technology did have a little bit of a lift, not a huge lift, but about 0.5%. But a lot of the contributors yesterday are some of the names that just absolutely were ripping to the upside. You look in the gaming and casino area, Caesars up 6.5%. You look at Wynn, you look at Penn, those names, 8, 9% moves to the upside. You had the airlines and the cruise ships. You had everything from JetBlue to Southwest to United to Delta. You just go through all of the airlines for the most part. They had a really, really terrific day. And then you look at Norwegian and Carnival, very nice day as well. American Airlines was leading the charge for the airlines, up about 7% yesterday. So a really big, monstrous day from those categories as well. What led the Dow? You want to go back to some old school tech? How about a little Salesforce leading the Dow yesterday, up about 2.5%, maybe a little bit more than that. So we come into today, we've got employment numbers, and those numbers absolutely just crushed what the expectations were to the upside. We had some big numbers yesterday, big numbers again today. If you look underneath the hood of this car, though, just remember this: the government was responsible for 250,000 of those job numbers, which was 943,000. So just keep in mind a little bit. I know we're seeing a very excited market today, but that's just something. Sometimes you got to sift through those numbers and sort of find out where are some of the areas that we're seeing some of the growth. And we are seeing it. There's no doubt about that. But those government numbers stood out for me. Anyway, the markets obviously reacted, and reacted very, very nicely. Basically, the Dow has been up anything triple digits or higher, throughout the session. The highest I saw was getting close towards 200 points to the upside. Last I looked, we were a little over 100 plus points to the upside. But the NASDAQ has been lagging. The NASDAQ's been lagging almost for the entire session so far. Entire session. We're an hour deep into it. But from the pre-markets, we were down about 50 points, and we've been down anywhere. We've gotten closer towards flat, and then we seem to fall back a little bit. I was last looking at the NASDAQ. It was down about 50 points. So crude oil today, moving back up above that 70 area early on. So that was pretty interesting. Energy, of course, with that move to the upside, moving to the upside as well. Another 1.5% or thereabouts movement for the energy space. You look at financials, that's moving a little bit higher, up about 1.5%. Why is that? Look at the 10-year. The 10-year now approaching 1.3. So a really nice, powerful move in the last couple of sessions for the 10-year moving to the upside. And as we've watched that move, the financials absolutely ripping to the upside as well. So who are the leaders today as far as the financials go? Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. Take a look at my favorite. You know what it's going to be, Capital One. That having another really, really good day as well. So when we look over at financials, you look over at energy, a little bit of a repeat from yesterday for sure. Volatility slipping with this move to the upside from the Dow, slipping underneath 17. So we are seeing as they start to price in the weekend a little bit, as we get deeper into today and we start looking forward a little bit, they'll price in that weekend. That might bring that volatility down even a little bit lower if the markets stay in the kind of areas where they are with the news the way it is. SMH was down a little bit early. The tech was down a little bit early. That obviously pulling up on the NASDAQ. But when I look at those beta energy names and I look at Marathon and Oxy and I look at Diamondback and some of those names, Devon, those all having a very powerful move today to the upside as we've watched energy, as I said, was in the low 67 area, then moved to 69, and today a move up and over 70, at least early on. So two unusuals. We'll get out of here, and I want you to enjoy your weekend. We do have the cocktail hour tonight at Market Rebellion that we do every single Friday, kind of review the week. We've been doing this ever since the pandemic started. We love the camaraderie of what we do with this session. It's always a lot of fun. Next Wednesday, I've also got a great opportunity for folks to see what's been going on in the markets. It's going to be myself and AJ. We're going to be kicking around and speed looking at all sorts of different charts and graphs and his opinions and what we're seeing in the options markets and all those kinds of things. We'll be dissecting all of that next Wednesday as well. We'll talk about that next week. Bank of America is the first one as far as the unusual. Now, Bank of America, just underneath $40. It was trading $39.90. We had a buyer of 12,000 of next week's expiring August 13th. So next Friday, 1 week from today, the 40 strike calls. Those are 29 cents up to about 50 cents. Looking for this move that I was talking about in the 10-year and the financials to continue to move to the upside and a nice break up through 40. It's right next to 40 already. So it's not that far away from the opportunity for Bank of America to make this kind of a move. We also, by the way, just as a side note, did have some option paper that was very bullish in the XLF today as well, just as a little bit of a bonus there for you. XLB. Now, we talk about the materials. I talk about ETFs all the time, how when I see an ETF, I always like to look at something else within that ETF that moves with the ETF, but moves at a much better pace, a better beta. I'll give you that in just a second. But the XLB trading around 83.50. So what did we see? We saw a buyer of 3,500 of the August, the regular expiring August 84 calls. Now, as I said, 83.5, they're buying the 84s. We'll call that the at-the-money calls. Those are about 82 cents. One print, boom, they bought these calls, pretty substantial, and they still sold calls up a little bit farther, the 87 calls to help finance a little bit of this trade. This is a trade that was rolling up from some options that were on the 83 strike that expired today. So taking those off, rolling it up, and going up and then putting on a spread. All of that being said, I look right to the FCX. I look at Freeport Mac and I want to see, okay, that's part obviously of the material space. It's not the biggest, but it's one of the bigger. It's a 5% value. But I like the beta out of that name. So a guy like me will shift away because I don't like trading the ETFs, and I'll shift over and trade some other name within that ETF that makes sense, that I can get a better bang for my buck. I think the ETFs oftentimes for me feels like a much lazier way. And if I can find more creative ways to trade, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I don't always do that. Every once in a while, I'll have an ETF and you'll see it on disclosures, but that's not all that frequent. I usually am looking for, I want beta. I want something that's going to move. And if it's going to move to the upside, I want it to move at a much faster pace than an ETF normally will. Folks, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, come here, Market Rebellion. We've got the educators. We've got guys, Bill Johnson, one of the all-time greats. We got all kinds of great educators out there. I think these guys do an absolutely magnificent job. I want you to have a safe and a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday.